Let's talk about fat. For so long we've been told it's just about laziness, right? Simple calories in, calories out. But what if that's all wrong? Today we're going to totally flip that script. We're going to look at your fat not as some simple storage unit, but as a complex, powerful, and intelligent organ. Kind of like a second brain that's running a whole hormonal orchestra inside you. So let's dive into the science behind this powerful conductor.
Yeah, let that one sink in for a second. We're not talking about something passive here, just kind of sitting there. We're talking about an active, bustling, biological machine that, when things go wrong, can become the most dangerous part of your body. And this whole explainer, it's about understanding exactly why.
So, for decades, we've heard that fat is the villain. But the truth, well, it's way more complicated than that. We absolutely, 100% need fat to be healthy. See, the problem isn't having fat. The problem is when this totally essential organ gets overwhelmed and starts working against us.
In fact, if you don't have enough fat, your body literally starts to break down. I mean, it can mess with everything: your ability to have kids, your power to fight off infections, even the strength of your bones and your mental health. So let's be super clear here. Fat itself is not the enemy. It's the excess that turns it into one. Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. Fat's most important job, and this is something we've only really understood in the last few decades, is to act as a massive endocrine organ. So, picture this. It's the conductor of this vast hormonal orchestra, sending out chemical signals that control your entire body.
So, you might be asking, what the heck is an endocrine organ? Well, think of it like a command center. Your fat tissue is constantly chatting with your brain, your liver, your muscles, your immune system, telling them all how to work together. It's this non-stop hormonal conversation happening inside you 24/7.
Now here's a crucial distinction. Not all fat is created equal. You've got that soft, subcutaneous fat right under your skin. For the most part, it's pretty harmless. But then, there's visceral fat. That's the stuff we need to worry about. It's the fat that's hidden deep down, nestled between your organs. It's super sensitive to stress hormones, and it's the main reason for that apple-shaped body type that's linked to higher health risks. So when this orchestra is playing in tune, you've got two star performers. First up is leptin. Think of leptin as the hormone that taps your brain on the shoulder and says, hey, we're full, you can stop eating now. And then you've got insulin. Insulin is the one that basically shouts dinner time to all your cells, telling them to soak up sugar from your blood for energy. When they're in harmony, everything just works. But what happens when that beautiful symphony starts hitting all the wrong notes? Well, that's where we get to the core of the problem. This massive mismatch between our ancient biology and our modern world.
Just think about it like this. For almost all of human history, food was really hard to find. So our bodies evolved to be absolute experts at storing every single calorie just to survive the next famine. But fast forward to today, and we are surrounded by endless, ultra-processed calorie bombs. Our ancient survival programming is still running, but the world has completely changed.
And this is so important to get. Struggling with weight is not a simple failure of willpower. It's a biological thing. Our ancient survival instincts are literally being hijacked by an environment they were never built for. And that is what causes our hormonal orchestra to go completely haywire.
And when that orchestra goes haywire, the fat organ itself, it enters a state of crisis. It becomes what you could call a wounded organ, one that starts to poison your system from the inside out.
I mean, try to imagine your individual fat cells. As they get overfilled, they just bloat to their absolute limit. They actually get so big, they outgrow their own blood supply, which leaves them starving for oxygen. They get incredibly stressed, and a lot of them just start to die off. So your immune system sees all these dying fat cells and basically sounds a 5-alarm fire. It sends in an army of cleanup cells, but the crisis is so constant that it leads to this state of chronic inflammation. This is basically like your body being under constant friendly fire, where your own immune system starts accidentally damaging your blood vessels and organs in the process.
Just look at this to see the scale of the crisis. In a lean person, these immune cells make up maybe 5% of their fat tissue. But in an obese person, that number can skyrocket to 40%. 40! That's a full-blown internal war. And all of that inflammatory chaos is exactly what starts to scramble all the communication lines in your body.
Because with all that noise, all that static, the body's most important communication lines just start to break down. The constant flood of stress signals and hormones is so overwhelming that your brain eventually just goes deaf. It stops hearing what your body is trying so hard to tell it. And this has devastating consequences.
With leptin resistance, your brain can't hear that "I'm full" signal anymore, which is why people often feel this intense, constant hunger, even with plenty of energy stored away. Your sex hormones get thrown completely out of balance, which increases cancer risk. And finally, you get insulin resistance, where your cells just stop listening to insulin's call to absorb sugar.
And this hormonal imbalance, it isn't a small thing. The consequences can be deadly. Get this, a shocking 10%, 1 in every 10 of all cancers in the United States are directly linked to the biological chaos caused by having excess unhealthy body fat.
And that insulin resistance we just talked about, it's a direct path to type 2 diabetes. Here's how it works. First, when you're healthy, your cells listen to insulin just fine. But then, with resistance, they start to ignore the signal. And finally, that leads to type 2 diabetes, where glucose builds up in your blood, acting almost like tiny shards of glass, damaging your nerves, your kidneys, and your eyes over time.
Now, I know all of that sounds incredibly bleak, but please stick with me, because this next part is the most important takeaway of all. This is not a one-way street. This dangerous process is reversible. We can absolutely retune our biology.
And here's the great news. As soon as you start to lose that excess fat, the orchestra can be retuned. When those fat cells shrink, they stop being so stressed out. The immune system calms down, the friendly fire stops, and your body immediately begins to recover. The hormonal signals start to get clear again, your cells can finally hear what your brain is telling them, and the symphony comes back into harmony. We're also in the middle of a pretty amazing medical revolution. New drugs like Ozempic and Mounjaro, what they do is they mimic a natural hormone called GLP-1. Essentially, they find that "I'm full" song that your body is already supposed to be playing, and they just turn up the volume. They play it louder and for longer, helping to fix the underlying biology, which in turn makes changing behavior actually possible. So ultimately, your body is this 200,000-year-old masterpiece of evolution. And yeah, its programming sometimes clashes with our modern world, but it's still incredible. Understanding all of this isn't about shame or guilt, it's about empowerment. So the real question isn't whether you failed, but rather, now that you know all this, how are you going to conduct your orchestra?